Yes, hello everybody. My name is Olaf Lewald from the city of Bielefeld, as I was introduced by Bonnie's already. And I want to tell you about the project that we had within Reveal in Bielefeld. First, a brief information about Bielefeld. Bielefeld is a medium-sized city in North Rhine-Westphalia with about 340,000 inhabitants. What's very important to mention, Bielefeld has decided on a sustainable urban mobility plan. The city council decided in 2019 the overall goal to reduce the car traffic down to 25% until 2030. Nowadays we have 51% share of motorized traffic in Bielefeld. So this is a very ambitious goal, but this is the goal for our activities in Bielefeld. And the aim behind this, a safe and resilient, sustainable mobility system for the city and the new use of public space. Before the Reveal pilot in the city's historical town, Bielefeld had already begun a project to reduce car use in its urban areas, the transformation of the Jahnplatz. The Jahnplatz is located at the northern edge of the historic city center, connected the center to the main commercial areas and hosting a major transport hub. It was being transitioned into a space for active mobility and slower and less motorized traffic through the reallocation of car lanes to bus and cycle lanes, the reduction of the speed limit from 50 kilometers per hour to 30 kilometers per hour, and the creation of new attractive public spaces. Here on the screen, you can see above a picture of the Jahnplatz before the reconstruction, and you see the Jahnplatz below. The construction works were finalized this summer in June 2022. And although it's a different perspective on both pictures, I think you can see that there is much more space for cycling and walking and for staying at the square. And we only have one car line in each direction, plus a lane for the buses. The transformation of the Jahnplatz kick-started the transformation of Bielefeld's historic Old Town through a package of spatial intervention UVA building blocks. Both the Jahnplatz and the Old Town projects are in line with the city's mobility strategy, which defines a sustainable model for the development of mobility in the city, and as I already mentioned, aims to reduce the individual car trips from 51% share down to 25% until 2023. The lessons learned in Reveal have given the city of Bielefeld a strong foundation to reach this goal. Of course, the challenges in the Old Town are different to the challenges of the main traffic hub. And on the picture, you can see on the picture above, you can see why the Old Town of Bielefeld is called the Horseshoe. This area is the Old Town, and the Jahnplatz Square is in the south on the picture. You can see it there. So it's really neighboring places there. And both projects, as I said, are really in line. And the only difference is the size and the importance for the through traffic, and of course the timing, because the Jahnplatz is ready. The Old Town is still in the project process. And as I said, the challenges in the Old Town are different than to the Jahnplatz. Narrow streets with little space for pedestrians and cyclists, very much on-street parking, through traffic, through the Old Town, air quality and road safety issues are very important in the old town. And delivery and access to shops, restaurants, etc., are very important impacts in the Reveal project, in our pilot in Reveal. What did we do? We did a very intensive data collection, coordinated planning and extensive stakeholder engagement, and a thorough pilot project was implemented in Bielefeld's horseshoe-shaped old town within Reveal. The core element was the participation process in Bielefeld. We started and involved the project. We started the project and involved all relevant stakeholders of the old town, as there are the Chamber of Commerce, of course, the retailers, the restaurant owners, and so on. Last but not least, the residents who are living in the old town and the people who are working there. And we invited them to work with us on a plan how the city, the old town, can be changed and can be made more attractive, more livable, with less noise, less traffic, more green and more livability. And furthermore, we introduced an own project website for the project to reach a wider public for ideas, critics, and feedback. And this in total was a very successful journey for us in the Reveal project. Various measures for traffic management and the new use of traffic space were tested out during the testing phase from June 2021 until the end of February 2022. The relevant actors from the public sector, business, civil society, and also the politicians have been very closely involved in the development of the testing phase. During the testing phase, we also made a lot of interviews with the people on the street. Of course, with the website, we get a very, very intensive feedback from the civil society, and with workshops with the stakeholders, we had a very intensive dialogue about the project itself. Here on the map, you can see the Old Town Horseshoe and the 6 different areas where we implemented different measures in that place. Between 2021 and February 2022, several UVA building blocks were tested in the Old Town, including the extension of a pedestrian zone, redesigned public spaces, reallocation of car lanes to cycling lanes, transformation of parking spaces for other uses, for instance, for seating, bicycle parking, sports, restaurant terraces, etc., and the introduction of movable bollards to prevent through traffic in some streets. The goal of the pilot was to evaluate the impacts and acceptability of these interventions by the public, with the hope to make them permanent in 2023 and potentially scale them up. Today, and when I say today, then this is now the time after Reveal, the project is not stopped, it has not ended. Some people in Bielefeld believe or hope or think that it has been stopped and that it should be ended and will not continue. Even some people of the media have this opinion, but it is not the case. I can tell you that we are strongly convinced to go on with our project, and we will start now the next phase. Unfortunately, after the lifetime of Reveal project, but Reveal was the kick-off, the starting point for this development. Today, the city is using the results of the Old Town pilot to turn towards permanent changes and expand its UVA measures. I would say expand. So we talk not only about UVAs in the Old Town, but also in other areas of Bielefeld. There is an overall strong support from a lot of stakeholders, not all stakeholders, but a lot of stakeholders, including restaurants and shop owners and road users, driven by the stakeholder-focused process, because this was the core of the project, to convince the majority of the people, to convince the majority of the public, hopefully the media, also politicians, because we didn't have any plan on our tables. There was nothing that was set from the beginning. It was, as we already heard today, a kind of a blank paper when we started. And this was really appreciated by the stakeholders. Although not every idea they had was finally implemented in the pilot and won't be become reality if we will come up with permanent implementations. Furthermore, Bielefeld has now begun testing a new last mile city logistic concept with a spatial focus on the city center, including a distribution center or logistic hub and a cargo bike rental system with it. This should further reduce the number of journeys done by motorized vehicle into the city center. This pilot is starting now and will make use of the existing bike rental system in Bielefeld, but it will be combined with cargo bike sharing for commercial use. And at a later stage, cargo rental system for private use, hopefully. These new services may enable the final scheme to be even more ambitious and successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olaf, for the description of Bielefeld. It was interesting because Olaf started with the description of Jahnplatz, which was sort of originally the idea of where Reveal would be focused, but that sort of was moving forward, and we ended up, I think, and this is, I think, a little bit pandemic related too, with this idea of the space, maybe that people were, I think the awareness, I had the feeling that there was more room for ambition in people's minds than there was before, not just in Bielefeld, but in general, I think. And like the activities in the Old Town were really interesting. We had some discussions too, what's possible, and talking through what you could do, and then to bring in all the ideas from the local citizens as well. We were all really impressed with the participation process that took place in Bielefeld. Shall we move to Padua? Raffaella Michelon, our colleague from Padua, who's going to tell us about the two different activities that they've had there.
Welcome to everybody. I'm glad to participate to the final conference. As in the previous period, we have online meeting, and so after 3 years, we meet each other. Padua is a small size city in Veneto region, and is situated This is a map of the two pilot action we implemented in Padua. Two UVA significant action with the goal of reducing air and noise pollution. LTZ concern the part of the inner historic center of Padua, while action number 2 regards the district of Padua in the south of the city. We named Super Guizza for that superblock has also used in other countries as Spain, etc. Action number 1 regards LTZ. We have a series of old rules began in the last years, and these regulatory rules led to a range of subsequent and some supplementary changes in the time. This is the map of reinforcement, the perimeter of the area of the enforcement of gates in historic center of Padua. And this is the current situation of compliance and enforcement. We have studied and developed draft of innovative ordinance in our department, especially the reveal project staff led to the drafting innovative ordinance. This was a work very demanding. Working tables were held within other sectors of the municipality, local police, environment, and territory. This is an important in the demanding work, but at present the innovative ordinance is pending. Priority has been given to the installation of the new cameras, and this is a picture that shows it, which not only serve to enforce the prohibition and access regulation in the historic center, but will also provide the data on traffic flows, vehicle typology, and thus increase data bank for monitoring the municipality of Padua. It should be pointed out that in our department there is a specific ZTL office with 8 person charge who deal with this type of work. Exemption and permits. This is a picture that shows the number of residents in historic center, because Padua is a medieval city and the streets are narrow, but the major of residents are in the inner historic center, and the number of permits gave to the residents in this area, and the sum for these permits. Other exemption regarding the disabled people, but there is also a network from the Veneto region to register disabled people for passing in ZTL of other cities, not only Padua. Access and permits in LTZ are necessary because high number of residents in historic center of Padua. Padua is it from the last year UNESCO World Heritage Site with Giotto Chapel and other monuments. And second is the high concentration of commercial and food and beverage activities in the large number of open space in the historic center, limited by bridges and medieval walls. We can see a square in the inner historic center of Padua, where shows the number of bicycle and people that are in this public square. This is the second, perhaps the second largest square in Europe, Prato della Valle, in which there is a market and other commercial activities, and the tram, 2 lines of trams for the people. circulate around the perimeter of Prato della Valle. This is also another example of a reallocation of public space near University of Padua, near Department of Engineering, which are made a new pavement for interaction of people living in the city. Because of due to the pandemic period, it is necessary for our department to find a reallocation of the spaces to permit people meeting, etc. This is a survey, a result of the survey that we had, especially the Department of Engineering of the University of Padua. There are the results of a survey carried out in the Historic Center in March, May, June 2022, based on the simulation of the application of the innovative ordinance. And this showed the positive results with respect to the following indicators, some of which are lower CO2 emissions, transport safety, walking and by bike increased, car use decreased, ex-ante 18, ex-post 9%, quality of life in general increased, accessibility increased, moving around in other ways than by car ownership, acceptance of the measure has improved 68%. This is one slide of the data monitoring and collection by the university. Okay.
The other one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. For action number 2, this is a slide that shows awareness and communication process. This is the first example in our department of this project participation. We begin with the Reveal project, and thanks to this project, we developed a public meeting. The involvement of stakeholders and public in this project, this process project. Online public meeting was the first of this in April 2022. Then our department will ask to participate in council committees of the municipality. Council committees 1, land use policies, and council committees 5, quality of life, on 16 June 2021. Then it was a face-to-face meeting in Acacia Tree Garden. This is an area, open area in the district of Wizza, and this was 15 of July 2021. Then it was the ordinance of a new road system with the change of the road system in Wizza, one-way street, 30 km/h street, the reallocation of the public space in front of the school. Then door-to-door leaflet dissemination. It was very difficult because we don't have people to send door-to-door leaflet. So our department asked help to our cabinet of mayor, which are people works on press release and on communication in general, and they helped us to do this. Then we organize a face-to-face event with the mobility counselor on October 2021, the 9th. But we have changed the previous mobility counselor, and this was the new mobility counselor. So we have to explain the new mobility counselor what we have to do with Super Wizza and Superbook, and we organize a simple campaign with a specific symbol, Super Wizza, etc. And finally, the last ordinance, July 2021, for only a street in Wizza via Annibal Caro. This is the public event on 9 October when our new mobility counselor have the contact with the public in public square, Vincenzo Cuoco at Wizza district. This is a slide of the work of our engineering, civil engineering and environment engineering of the University of Padua, and shows this monitoring of data collected in the Wizza Superblock between the ex-ante May 2021 and ex-post 2022 measurements, and it showed number of trip crossing the area is decreased. Thank you, the Superblock in the area. Also, it's obvious that this data decrease, and it's positive feedback. Average speed of cars crossing the area is decreased ex ante in green and also yellow in ex post measurement. So some consideration on this data. Because data collection monitoring is a long work, and it would much time to present it this, but we have two teachers of the university who asked your questions on this. But I would say that these measurements showed that road safety has increased with the Superblock, in particular the safety for pedestrian crossing in the area of Via Tassoni Street in front of the school, and Testi Street beside the school at near the park of Wizza district. Accessibility by car for crossing traffic has decreased. This is the result of a successful experiment. Currently, walking in the area is safe and pleasant. For age groups 15-19 years old, 70%, 100%. 69 years, 67%. Also for people with reduced mobility. Accessibility by bike is increased. Car speed has decreased thanks to the 30 km/h zone. Traffic flow decreased, and it was expected by experimentation. Redistribution of flows due to closure in front of the school is positive. A slight worsening surrounding roads, especially to the west in Via Confortini. This is another slide that explains what I am talking about now. Finally, everything here presented corresponds to what we have learned with Reveal, and it is the thought of my colleague, Luca Cohen, and I'm glad to present to you. And thanks, Laura, for having a sentence that I wrote some time ago. Okay.
Thank you, Raffaella. Yeah, so another view, it's true, we had one of the quotes and they get pulled out. Whenever somebody said something that was really insightful, we usually wrote it down somewhere. We had our collection of really smart things that people said. And one that came from Rafaela was talking about, we saw this earlier, all of these different departments coming together to work on this. And that was so beautiful because it just didn't happen so often. So just this idea that people were working together, isn't this great?
What Siddhartha didn't say is the tone, Michael. It was wonderful. The first time people had met and actually worked together on everything, and it was the tone. It was wonderful.
It was the first example in Padua, so
Yeah.
we were very excited.
No, it's really exciting to see that then, and to see then the results coming from this, that it's.
Now there is another process, participation process for the new line of tram.
Okay.
After this project. So we will learn this aspect of this approach.
That, yeah, a different way of approaching participation. Excellent.
Yes.
Juan Carlos, do you want to tell us about Vitoria-Gasteiz?
Thank you, Bonnie. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm really proud to be part of this consortium, of this team, and I try to do my best to show what has been the challenges and the results of our participation within the Reveal project. Well, a first introduction to the city of Vitoria-Gasteiz is a medium-sized city, a 250,000 of inhabitants, located in the north of Spain. We are the capital of the Basque Country. But it's a really compact city because nearly 98% of the population is living inside a 3-kilometer radius from the city center of Vitoria-Gasteiz. Well, in our approach within the Reveal project, our focus was put mainly in physical interventions, no? In order to intervene in the urban mobility system, to improve it, to make it more efficient, and to try to minimize the environmental and social impacts due to the mobility system in the city. The idea and is the approach the city has tried to apply for decades is to work for a human scale city and to try to give back the public space for the people. And that is because when we consider to join the consortium for the proposal was to try to continue working in order to continue with physical interventions in order to recover this public space for the people. Our approach is not so close to low emission zones, but to livability enhanced zones. Because for us, the importance is not to change the type of cars crossing the city and using the city, but to put the people on the top. Okay? We from the very beginning, we tried to do it together with the people, trying to involve as many stakeholders as possible in order to try to select the different building blocks in order to support us in this transformation of the public space according to the superblock approach. Those are the different building blocks that we have tried to apply in the different pilots. We have worked within the project, from speed reduction, traffic filters, to different complementary measures like safe bike parking, a new micro-logistic hub, and so on. So we have a very extensive catalog of the different building blocks that are supporting us in this transformation of the city. Yeah, this is the main element of our sustainable mobility and public space strategy, is the superblock approach. And this is the distribution of superblocks in all the city. So this is not the city center. This is the city, the whole city of Vitoria-Gasteiz. Yeah, what is true is that this is a long-term approach. So it takes long to do it a reality, but we have a clear idea of the city we wanted for the future, and always we have the opportunity to reclaim a street or to refurbish the public space, because, for instance, we are implementing district heating in an area. We have the idea of what should be the redesign of the public space in the area, and this is the superblock approach. Well, the two first pilots we implemented within the project was this area in the La Costa de San Francisco, Los Arquillos, to the south of the medieval quarter. This is the transformation. This is the situation after the intervention that were implemented in this part of the central superblock, extending the pedestrian promenade coming from the old square of the city, Virgen Blanca Square, until the top of the hill where the city was founded. This was a first phase of the intervention. The image on the left is the previous situation, and this is the after situation, where, as you can see, the street is being used by the people. Okay. We continue after the project. Yeah, this is our result of this first phase, because due to the grant we have obtained from the Next Generation funds of the European Union, we are going to extend the intervention till the border of the central superblock. So the whole street you have in the image will be pedestrianized, extending the intervention in the area. The other pilot we implemented, the images on the upper collage are the recreation of the project, the original situation, and the two images on the bottom are the reality. And this is during the opening after the pandemic lockdown. So this new space were really appreciated by the neighbors after the pandemic we experienced. So now this is another civic space for this neighborhood. It was also an opportunity to intervene through tactical urbanism approaches, trying to complement the fully structural new designs we implemented in the two previous examples. For instance, in areas where it was not possible to cancel totally the parking areas, yeah, it was possible to introduce some vegetation in order to modify also the design of the street in order to calm the traffic and to allow those areas to have other functions apart the mobility. Yeah. And yeah, we know this is the starting point. If we succeed in reducing the number of cars registered in the city, it will be possible to go on and to give more public space for people and also for nature and for vegetation. Another example, this was an intervention that was done during the lockdown for the opening we transform also with tactical urbanism this main street in the city center. And nowadays, this street has been to be redesigned and refurbished totally in order to consolidate the intervention for the people instead for the car. Another examples of this kind of tactical interventions in other neighborhoods where it's not possible to cancel the parking areas, but with low-cost measures, it's possible to change the environment in the area and to provide the people a feeling that is a space for the people instead for the car. So we are trying to implement livability enhanced zones, no low emission zones. This is the approach. Aldave neighborhood, another area where nowadays we have started this kind of interventions after the reveal project and after the implementation of a new district heating network in the area. And after a really intensive participatory process with the community in order to agree with all the stakeholders about the final design in the area. And this is the reality today. Here you have the map with the different super blocks and where also we are showing different interventions, different building blocks we are planning to implement in order to continue working towards this aim to have the super block approach extended to the whole city. And this would be an opportunity not only to recover the public space for the people and to reduce the use of the private car in the city, but also in order to improve the green infrastructure and to provide natural connections between the different super blocks, the different neighborhoods with the city surroundings, and provided additional ecosystem services by the green areas in the city, but also trying to transform isolated green areas in a real green system in the city. And that is only possible after the implementation of the super block approach and after the reduction of the through traffic and the use of the car in the city center.
Keep that 1 second.
Yeah. It doesn't work, and now, yeah, that's
It's
okay.
cooling the city as well.
Yeah, this is a chance for the city to be prepared for the near future and for the really challenging future we are in front of us. No, no future, it's today. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and after to conclude, during the last part of the project, we had the chance to start working with another pilot that was not in our original participation within the project. That is the implementation of a low emission zone, because nowadays the national legislation in Spain demands all the cities over 50,000 inhabitants to have a low emission zone implemented. And the participation within the project and the support of the team, the different experts, friends, cities, has been really helpful in order to have a proposal for discussion. And we hope during the next year to have implemented the first phase of the low emission zone, starting with a residential priority area within the central super block, supported with different additional building blocks and complementary measures. This is a project that will be, it's being funded by Next Generation funds, and the participation in this project has been really helpful for us in order to have a winner proposal in order to get the funds by the central government and by the European Commission in order to continue working in this approach to become a real human scale city. There are different measures here. Yeah, the traffic access control in the area, the extension of the parking regulated area. We have also within the scheme different phases with the transformation of the parking regulated area in a parking regulated area according to the environmental vignette, the label, the environmental label. And the idea is to extend all the parking regulated area to all the super blocks inside the former ring road of the city. This is the and to conclude, some complementary measures we are implementing, for instance, the extension of the safe parking areas, a new underground safe parking space in the city center, and the new micro-logistic hub in the former bus station that we hope to start operating next year. It's a 800 square meters building that it's going to be refurbished in order to provide the micro-logistic service to all the medieval quarter and the surrounding super blocks. The idea is to try to consolidate in this space the services by different operators to be served in the last mile by only one operator. That is the idea, to try to to consolidate and to try to optimize the last mile in order to avoid this invasion of vans in the pedestrian areas and the area where we wish to give back to the public. And that's all. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.
Take a seat, Juan Carlos. And Olaf and Rafaela, can I invite you both to come back too? Maybe go the other way, yeah. You can sit over one more, Juan Carlos. I feel like I'm sitting on your lap.
I'm sorry.
I don't need to sit, but
Sorry.
So we've got you all lined up here. I guess the first thing is, are there any questions anybody would like to put out to these three? Aroa.
For Padua. Thank you for your presentation. Regarding the limited traffic zone, which is more or less approximately the budget for the implementation of the limited traffic zone without considering communication and awareness campaign?
We expected in a short time, because Padua has been selected as mission cities, and so we can develop some action within a precise data, certain data. So this was an action to be developed, and we expected for our team, for a technician team of mobility department, the hope is in a short time.
Did you ask about budget too? Did I understand? How about the cost?
Approximately for 32 cameras, I think that you said in the presentation. For the limited traffic zone.
Rafaela, qual è stato il budget per la ZTL?
Il budget, but for the
delle telecamere.
For the tender of gates, but I don't follow this tender because we have special team in contracts, office contracts that develop this type of tender, but it was a big amount, 700. But I don't know the import. But my colleague knows this data. So if you send a mail, we can say that,
Get the information.
that information.
Yes, so you can see what it will mean for you when you start putting them in too. Yeah. Samantha, I saw a question from you. Yeah.
Rafaela, your mobility councillor, is that an elected person? Is that elected representative?
Yes.
And do they have, is it all transport that they cover, or is it specific?
No, it's he occupied currently of mobility department and environment department. While in the past times we have two councillors, two different councillors, one for mobility and the other for environment department. But in this period he works very well, and he thinks that the supervisa is a positive example for reducing traffic, and he thinks to replicate this super block in other districts of our city, as Arcella. You don't know what is, but is another district of the town with a similar situation. There is a school, and he wants to reallocate space in this zone.
So it's been received positively, clearly, if there's interest. I remember when we went to Padua, we were able to visit there 3 years ago, and the mobility councillor at that time, the different one, was also really keen and interested. And I can imagine then when you have a change like that, that you have to, and you said the new person came, and so you had to bring the new person into this whole situation. And
yes, the last previous mobility councillor was a teacher of the university. Also, I think also in engineer, department of engineering, and he was illuminated from this point of view. He thinks that this experimentation in the city are positive for reducing traffic. For but after there was the pandemic period, so the situation was assessed, but this then important for Padua.
Also for the future, because that can be sort of a period of risk when you have that change, when you're trying to develop something. So it was lucky that the new councillor was also supportive.
Reality.
Yeah,
That's
for sure. Yeah, you have to be flexible, that's for sure. Question?
Yes, thank you all for presenting my reflection of what you said, Juan Carlos, about livability. Just thinking in the project as well, as I understood, it's a lot of focus on public spaces and how livability for people moving around in the area. But I would also see what you think about the livability for the residents as well. So we have people living in apartments and so on. We see one trial in Sweden, for instance, you have going from conventional buses to electrical buses, where they really look at how that affects the people living along these bus routes, and it has a huge impact there as well. So when we talk about livability and public spaces, do you also think about that, how might it affect the residents, not only those walking in the public spaces? If you understand my reflection.
Yeah, really. As you can see, many of the interventions that we are implementing in the city has to do a lot canceling parking and to free space in order to provide these new possibilities. Yeah, and that is a key element, and that is because we always use the best information as possible to be put over the table for the discussions. Yes, we have, for instance, a very accurate geographical information system with different layers. And for example, we have a very important layer that is the balance between the offer and the demand of parking for residents. And it's amazing when you have the real data, the situation changed totally. Yes, because it seems always there is a lack of parking for residents, and that's not true. Sometimes you have no superavit for parking 50 meters from your home, but always, no, not always, but in many cases, there is the possibility to balance this demand for parking in the surroundings areas. So why are we asking the people to walk 300 meters to arrive into the bus station or into the bus stop or the tram stop, and not to walk 400 meters to arrive to the parking, for instance? And what is important is the accessibility. So you should provide alternatives. You should provide public transport, a better public transport. You should provide convenient walking itineraries. You should provide a nice bike infrastructure. You should provide alternative the people to access to the services and to the city. So the car is not the only option. But what is true is that you should go slowly, according to the boiling frog, no, approach. And to do it slowly, in order not to, yeah.
Sorry,
To
someone
have
used
a
it to
revolution.
the boiling frog. Everybody knows the.
Yeah.
You put a frog into cold water, and you slowly turn the heat up, and the frog at some point will boil, but it doesn't realize it because the water is heating up slowly.
But in the
I'm not
contrary,
sure.
if you put the frog, yeah, on a boiling.
If you drop it into the boiling water, it'll jump right out again. But if it starts in the
You should go slowly. No, and yeah, I'm trying to convince the people, display, yeah,
The fraud.
and providing alternatives. That is the cue. So
we'll work on a better analogy, right?
what is important here is to have the clear idea of the strategy for the future. So it's not so important to go quickly. So what is important is not to go backwards.
Yeah.
So if it's needed to stay, what's the problem? There will be another opportunity.
I have to say, though, the other takeaway message from what you say is keep data. When he says, I have the facts, and in fact, there is enough parking space within 400 meters of your apartment. And the demand is, like, the numbers that you collect in Vitoria-Gasteiz sometimes, like, wow. And that's the sort of thing that's really helpful then, because you have facts, not just people speculating. I saw a couple of other hands, Joel, and then Cosimo, and then.
Kind of on the parking.
Sorry?
Kind of on coming back on the parking.
After Joel and Cosimo.
Actually, if you want to talk about parking, so go ahead before me.
It was a balance between Germany, where taking parking space is very political, and you say there's no problem, you just go slowly and you talk to the people. So how can you teach Bielefeld and other?
No, it's a political question always. But if you provide the information, you are providing the politician an interesting tool in order to confront.
And other services, we talk about the complementary measures, like the bus services that you've improved, and just the general public transport at the same time. I remember even in our very first meeting in Bielefeld, and we said, oh yeah, then we took out all the parking, or no, we raised the price by triple or something. And we all, well, and we all just, we didn't understand. We thought, well, how did you do that? But with ongoing processes, so that's a
And you
whole,
reduce the price of the public transport at the same time as increasing the price of the parking.
yeah, making that, so it is the balancing out with the complementary
Yeah.
measures.
What we did is to improve the service of the public transport. At the same time, we increased the price for parking in the city center by 3. So
Yeah,
altogether, the two measures. But
yeah.
you
here's the
should
bus.
provide alternative and
Yeah.
a high quality alternative.
Yeah. Olaf, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that you need to have alternatives to provide it to the people. But I'm very much sure that there is a difference between Spanish people and German people when we are talking about cars and parking spaces. Just an example, when you mentioned it, if you show one of your people the data that he only has to walk 300 meters more, and I can tell you this, we are now implementing a cycling lane in Bielefeld, and so we take away a lot of car parking places from the on-street parking, and we close some parts of the road for the cars so that there are only became one-way streets. And there's one resident who blames us because he now has to drive 400 meters extra to get to his garage. So we are not talking about an extra way for walking, but for driving with his car. This is different maybe between Spanish people and
No,
German.
but it's the same. No, these people is in opposition of this kind of measures. Is the general interest over the particular interest.
Yeah.
It's always a change of mobility behavior.
Yeah, but you
That's
are
not-
saying what
that's
same
the
people
wrong
say.
question.
Yeah, you are.
I'm curious, maybe it was talked about engaging with the stakeholders.
Yeah.
But you know, with stakeholders, I have this picture of eating steaks instead of. Yeah, the stakeholders, but there are the whole bunch of people talk about this world of public participation, the words of public participation. My question is, what does actually do you mean by that? Because it could be everything from just sharing information and good marketing to co-creation and really active engagement in developing the solutions. And then the question is, who has the decision-making power in these public engagement situations? So I'd be curious to know what was the essence of this working with the stakeholders. And the other question is frequently related to that, is there's often a time gap between the time that you get public participation or even active involvement in people's thinking and the time when it's actually implemented. And then you get this sense of loss of belief that what we said 3 years ago has anything to do with what's going on today. So curious to know if the timeframes are a problem and how you dealt with that and what you mean by working with the stakeholders.
Okay, that was a big, long question. Juan Carlos, it's yours.
Okay, yeah. For example, in our case, we started with the mobility and public space strategy in the city with this new strategy 14 years ago. And it was decided to start working from the very beginning with all the stakeholders. And that is because we created an entity that is the Sustainable Mobility and Public Space Forum. And within this entity, we invest, because it was an investment. 8 months work, intensive work, in order to have a consensus with an approach for the mobility and public space strategy of the city. It was the Mobility Pact. And after having this Mobility Pact with the different principles guiding the design of the strategy of the city, it was easier to adopt really unpopular measures, like for example, to increase by 3 the price of parking prices. Yes, because the same day the local parliament was discussing the adoption of the new taxes for parking in the city center, there were different neighborhood associations with 2,000 signs in opposite of these new taxes. And all the parties from the right to the left decided to go on with the measure because they adopted the mobility pact, and we understood that the general interest is over the particular interest of different residents in the city, and that if we want to become a carbon neutral city, a human scale city, a healthy city, is needed to change the situation that we are living nowadays because of the car. And yeah, and that is because we consider this participation and this community engagement and so on is part of a process that I understand as a shared learning process. Yes, because we have been learning from the very beginning, and we will continue learning. And what is important is to continue with this, working with the community, and it's not so easy. So because sometimes, yeah, it's easier, and sometimes it's not so easy. For instance, nowadays that we are 6 months before the local elections, it's not the better moment, the best time to continue and to implement this kind of measures. For instance, the low traffic zone and so on. We should wait after the elections.
Some basic tips for that, yeah, not the time 6 months before.
Sometimes you have to duck.
No, it's a good thing to stay. No problem.
Yeah.
It's better to
Wait
wait
for the moment.
for a better moment.
Cosimo?
Yes, I've seen that since the very beginning of my civil experience, all the different ways you try to adopt the superblock approach to Vitoria, and it's mostly the same also for Barcelona. No? And now you have included a slide where you have drafted these green corridors. That it has become something pretty new, and it's a step forward in implementation of the superblock concept, because now it's connecting the different superblocks through a different way, having also the perception of the city. And I'm curious of the discussion behind this, so about the greeneries, so the green part, and you have a great experience also with the green belt that you built up at several years ago. If you have done some thoughts on how to include more trees, which kind of plants, because now you will need more space also for the greeneries or for trees, and it becomes a new way of redesigning these corridors, these streets. So I don't know if you are thinking about it.
Yes, really, we are thinking on it, and that is because we are trying to evolve the concept, and we have a green infrastructure strategy of the city. And when we started working in this strategy, we understood that was clearly connected with the superblock approach. Yes, because in the superblock approach, from the very beginning, we highlighted the opportunity after recovery these inner streets for the people, that could be an opportunity to implement pedestrian corridors, connecting the different superblocks with the different services in the city, with the civic centers, with the green belt, and so on. And if you succeed in reducing the number of cars parking on the streets along those corridors, and if you reduce the through traffic and the traffic on those corridors, you have a huge opportunity. Also, not only to give back the public space for the people, but to implement those green corridors. And that is the opportunity, and that's because we are nowadays connecting both approaches, the green infrastructure and the mobility and public space strategy of the city. I've shown postcard with a QR code through you could download a publication explaining all those approach connecting the public space and the infrastructure approaches. So I provide you after the session.
Okay. Just conscious of the time, can I, just to wrap up, ask each of you the same question as I asked the other cities? And that was, what are you most proud of from what you've accomplished in Reveal? And is there anything you would change? And maybe I'll just go 1, 2, 3 along the road. Juan Carlos.
Proud, yeah. Probably the opportunity the project has provided us in order to prepare a good proposal for the next generation funds to implement the low emission zone and the different building blocks supporting the implementation of these new actions, because it's an opportunity to continue working in order to build in this human scale city. So I'm really proud, yes, because it was easier to prepare a really holistic approach and a good proposal. And why not?
Okay. Rafaela, for Padua?
So for Padua, we are proud of having had the possibility of communicating to citizens the Uber concept physically implemented in our towns.
Nice. And that it looks like it's being copied or considered for other places too. Ola?
Well, I think we in Bielefeld are very proud of the fact, what I mentioned in my presentation as well, that we started with a blank sheet of paper. The process was completely open. When we started the project about the Uber for the old town in Bielefeld, there was nothing planned or even in a concept ready at the administration. I think that the stakeholders and also the public was very much appreciating this thing, although we heard during the process that not everybody was believing in us. Maybe there is a kind of a mistrust against the authorities, I don't know. But as we heard later on, it was more kind of a disappointment by some of the stakeholders, because they didn't find themselves in the final pilots that has been tested. And then they say, oh, you didn't talk with me, you did talk to me, but you didn't hear. And this brings me to the thing that we could make better. We could make better that we are very clear from the beginning that it is an open process and that we explain it to the people much better than we did. And getting back to your question, that it's of course a co-creation process. They have to come up with their ideas, but not everything can be done as you want it on your own. And to make clear that the final decision maker are the elected members of the city council. And I think this has to be really clear to everybody. It's not only about UVARs or a parking tax. This belongs to each decision in the city.
Yeah. Thank you.